welcome to Ladies of Another View on Back. I am Mary, and today I am joined by Emily and Lori. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by Patty. She has to sit out for a little bit because we have a guest. You know, today's a big day. We're going to visit with Aaron Lewis. He has his Ph.D. He's a pastor. He's an author. He pretty much does it all. And then later in the show, we're just going to talk about what's going on in America right now. And then, of course, we always leave you with our lighter side. And it is light. So anyway, I want to get right to the show and welcome Dr. Aaron Lewis to the show.
Thank you. So glad to be here on today.
Awesome. I'm so glad you can make it. This is the second time you've been on our show. And just for our viewers, you and I actually met down in Rapid City at a Freedom Fest. Right. And it was kind of God who put us together.
Absolutely.
It was just amazing. He was in, there were thousands of people down there. And
Right.
I was trying to leave the place, and you were also trying to get to your hotel, and they were waiting for a bus. And they were just standing
Exactly.
on the side of the road, and I just said, hey, do you need a lift? And it's like, sure. And we just had such lovely conversation.
Wonderful conversation. Yes, indeed.
It was beautiful.
And that
So
brought
what's
us
new in your
together.
life right now then? What's going on?
What's new is running for governor for the state of Connecticut. And so that's very new.
That's very new.
Very, very new. And so doing all that needs to be done to get the people to vote the right way. And so we're excited about that. And hopefully this can be a precedent for many of the other states in the United States that have not gone in the right direction to see hope that there can be new leadership that can point us in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that's really interesting. So, I did not know you were running for governor. What made you decide to run?
One of the things, some of the ancient Sikhs and sages of old, they had a phrase, even Mahatma Gandhi said it as well, that you need to be the change that you want to see. And in the past 2 years, leadership has become so unreliable and so on the other side. And what I mean by the other side is not on the side of the people, but on the other side of whoever they're bidding for. And so I said that, and it didn't seem like anyone other than the regulars were stepping up to the plate to lead. So I said, well, I definitely have to stand in the gap, because when you talk about humanity, we talk about people, we have to stand up for the people. If nobody else is doing it, then here am I, I've got to do it.
That's awesome. And so as you're running for governor, are there any specific issues or problems that you're running into head on, being who you are and going into the governor race?
In the state of Connecticut, I'm very well known. And so, so that's a plus. But in terms of problems, every single second of the day, there's problems that we're running into. And one of the main problems is that, that if I could be a potential solution, not to all of the problems that's going on in our society here in Connecticut, but if I could even be a solution to some of them, I then, by default, highlight the problems of the previous administration. So the previous administration certainly is not happy about this run, because I don't have anything in this for me. I do well. I always have done well. God takes great care of me. I have no need for anything. You can't bribe me. You can't, give me a side deal. And so for me to do this, it's all about the people. Again, it's just leading the people into greener pastures. And so right now, as with many states in the United States, there has been over the past 2 years a justification for decimating the economy everywhere. Although I'm not in New York, I'm in Connecticut, but New York, for example, has decimated its economy, literally ran the entire businesses into the ground to the tune of tens of thousands. In Connecticut, we have over 1,000 businesses that have closed because of COVID. But it's interesting that At the same time, there are some businesses that actually thrived that still require people, like Costco and BJ's and Sam's Club and Home Depot and Amazon.com, and the list goes on and on. So there are some businesses that were cherry picked to survive and do well and thrive, and then there were others that could not make the cut. And to me, that level of picking and choosing is ethically wrong, even from a business perspective, because some shouldn't fail and others succeed by decision of the governor. What makes these essential and others not, even the churches. One of the things I was very proud of Governor DeSantis recently, and I believe he's the first and only governor that made the public announcement that the church is essential. But what makes a nightclub or a strip club an essential place to be, or a package store, essential, but yet all the churches get shut down? It's offensive to those of faith, and it's something that we need to speak about. So our economy has been decimated. Simultaneously, the educational sector has been completely torn apart. Our poor children, and I say that compassionately. I have a school in the city of Hartford that I started back in 2009 called the Scribes Institute, a supplementary school to help bolster kids' education in 2nd to 8th grade, which are the fundamental years. And I see in the public school system, as well as the private sector, we've shifted to a Zoom format as the substitute to kids interacting with one another. What we're doing right now on Zoom is completely wonderful. It's complete, and I'm talking about this actual broadcast. It's fine because I don't have to fly to North Dakota, even though I'd love to come and be with you in person and just give all of you a hug. But for this format, it's absolutely perfect. But for children that are developing in 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade, kindergartens, for goodness sake, on Zoom, this format is not a viable and usable and strong source of education for children. This is not. At best, it's supplementary. Children need to interact. They need to get together. They need to touch one another. They need to touch each other, talk to one another, joke with one another, and play. And that has been stripped from the educational sector all around the country, and certainly in Connecticut. And so we want to not only fortify education, because kids have lost 2 years of their life. And I'm talking about kindergarten to 12th grade. They've lost 2 years of their lives, and we got to help them get it back.
So Lori, you had a question that.
Yes, so with the climate, with COVID and everything like that, I feel it has brought a new spark to politics. It's bringing, I feel, people bringing the politics out of politics, and having people like you, hearing that you're going to run for the governor of Connecticut. I think people are very open to more of the unpolitical people now because Connecticut, were they really locked down? And do you feel like people are very open to what you have to say just because of everything that's happened for the last 2 years?
Oh, absolutely. Connecticut was definitely in the running, probably within the top 10 states of lockdowns. And there again, I mean, I've been a humanitarian for nearly all of my adult life, having traveled to 61 countries around the world, bringing aid and bringing education and supplies and medicine and vitamins and doctors to countries all over the world. So, I mean, this is not something that I'm talking, it's something that I live. So I bring help to the people that need it most. And so when I talk about the fact that things could have been done differently during COVID than how it played out, I'm not saying it from an unsympathetic point of view. I'm saying that a lot of the leadership was completely disastrous, and it hurt more than it helped. Our government's job is not to make sure that we take vitamins. Our government's job not to make sure that you take your insulin every day. Our government's job is to protect our freedoms. And throughout the past 2 years, that's exactly what they've done the opposite of. They have not protected the freedoms of the American people. But worse yet is when they justify it. That's the problem. You know, you can do something that's wrong, but then when you try to justify it, that becomes extraordinarily problematic, because now we see that your justification is rooted in ego and in pride, and then sometimes in special interests. There's oftentimes where special interest groups causes one to have to maintain a position that a person clearly knows is wrong and counterproductive to the advancement of humanity. And that's something that I'm very, very strong on, is dealing with how to get us back on the track and running again, because there's a lot that's been damaged here in our state, and clearly around the country as well, and to get the type of leaders in that can lead. And, you know, when I say lead, I mean, even when you have to make a decision that is not popular, that's what leadership is. And so as governor, you know, there will be 49 other governors that would be my colleagues. But because 46 governors have decided that, you know, we are going to make a decision that's going to hurt the people, I have a choice to not go the direction of those 46 governors. I can make a choice that says that even though you are making this choice, I'm going to choose to do something different in this case. And that's what I believe leadership is all about. And we just don't see enough of that today.
Right. I think the South Dakota governor was really on board with that as well. But, you know, you talk about, you know, leading. And so right now our education system is kind of failing in many, many areas.
Yeah, that's an understatement. That's an understatement. It's an understatement.
So why don't you tell us what you think the problem is with education right now?
I mean, the problem with education is almost parallel to the problem with the healthcare profession, is that we have made subordinate things that at one time, you know, in a land far, far away, there was a day when education mattered and people's lives mattered and people's healths mattered. But now we live in a day where what matter is popular opinion. And now we have a populist type of politics in our society that completely ignores the here and now. Our children have been neglected for 2 years in the name of a pandemic that at this point we have seen, though it had many drastic implications on one end, on another end, the greater percentage of the people were not personally affected by it to the point of death. And so everything doesn't stop. What our federal government did, what our state governments did not rid the virus. It did not rid it. It never could rid the virus. There's never been a virus in the history of the world that can be contained by the measurements that they put in place. If there's anything that we can do about a virus is to make our air better, particularly if it's an airborne virus. And so putting a mask on when everyone in the medical world knew that the virus was nanoparticles that can go straight through a mask. They knew this. Everybody continued to pretend and pretend and pretend, and the children suffered. The developmental years of a child are arguably the most important years of that child's life. And we're talking somewhere between the area of birth to around 7 years old. Those years are crucial to everything. The interaction of children with one another, the children with strangers, which is so important that children understand how to deal with people that they may not be familiar with in their families or in their regular company. Well, guess what? That was completely taken away from them. They can't get that back. And the problem is that most politicians are not even addressing it. And so the carelessness concerning the educational sector has gone, you know, to an ultimate high. We can't find people that care anymore, but only people that just want to be voted in so they can perpetuate the status quo. And that's something that completely has to end, because yes, our children matter. Our children matter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm kind of going to switch gears here on you, Aaron. And, you know, critical race theory, or CRT, is a huge topic out there right now. And could you kind of explain to our viewers what that is and kind of your stance on CRT?
Well, critical race theory is a cross-disciplinary, intellectual, academic, and social movement of civil rights scholars and activists who seem to examine like the intersectional approach of race and law in the United States and try to challenge mainstream America to implement liberal approaches to racial justice. And that's kind of the academic definition of it. And because that academic definition was a bit above everybody's head, I did that very intentionally because I wanted you all to know where critical race theory belongs. It belongs in the postgraduate levels of academia. It certainly does not belong in the elementary or even middle school or high school arenas at all. So what critical race theory is doing in America is it's destructive. It's not helping us. And there again, I'm not shy to talk about real issues, and I will go toe-to-toe with any person, whether they're a Caucasian person that's for it, whether it's a Black person that's for it, or a Hispanic person that's for it. I'm a person that's all about results. So if it's working, then hey, I'm a critical race theory, on the bandwagon. I'm a junkie. But when it's not working, let's be honest, it doesn't work. It's divisive. It does not have a means to an end. It's not solution oriented. And at this point, what it's doing is causing more and more division among the races. And that we don't need more of in our country whatsoever. So critical race theory is not a solution-oriented proposition, but it's more of a, you're white and you ought to feel guilty because 400 years ago, this guy that you never ever met, who's like your great-great-great-grandfather 12 generations ago was an idiot that enslaved people. And now all these generations away from that person that you never met, you don't even have pictures in your house of him. You need to feel guilty. You need to feel bad because even though you didn't know this guy, and if you did, you might not have liked him, you did it. You did it. And you got to pay. That's complete ridiculous.
So we were kind of discussing CRT a little bit before the break. Anything else you want to share on that before we switch gears into
I mean, like I said, that I understand the import of why critical race, first of all, critical race theory is not new. And most people that are, critical race theory junkies and on the bandwagon, they think that it's a new phenomenon that became super popular during COVID. It's not. It's been in schools all across the country, from Stanford to Harvard to Howard University, all over the country. But it's been the late 60s, early 70s. It was the Black intellectuals that, after the civil rights movement. And then it was tremendously necessary to have the discussion. What critical race theory was back then is certainly what it's not right now. And so I believe that it needs to go into the halls of academia because it seemed to have a better purpose when it was there. But, teaching, I mean, the people that call themselves teaching it in first, second, third, and fourth grade, it's absolutely disastrous. And to me, it's like, recruiting me to teach Chinese to American students. I don't know anything about the Chinese language. So it would be I'd make up words and make up concepts about China that I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. They don't know what they're talking about. And so it's confusing young American children more than anything else, and also giving them a reason that they did not have to be divided.
It's kind of funny because a lot of these movements usually start by angry white liberal women. I'm sorry to say that.
100%, 100%. Exactly.
It is.
So we can change topics though, but thanks for kind of going over that CRT. We're not going to go into that one. We're not going to go down that rabbit
Angry
hole.
white women.
So I'm going to talk about what's happening right now in the news, with President Biden had said, he wanted to nominate a new Supreme Court justice, and she had to be Black and had to be a woman. I mean, how do you feel that is going to follow her as we go on? And what does that tell kids as of, anybody right now, that's how we nominate people.
So here's the deal, and let me be very clear about this. There was a time in history, and there are certain times where that type of narrative is needed, right? I don't believe it's needed now. There are times where that was needed. I mean, after 1865 in the Reconstruction era, right? It was certainly needed then. And even in and around the entire era in the 60s of the Civil Rights Movement, it was needed then. Here's the question. At what point do I get nominated 100% based on my merits, on my content, so much so that my color isn't even necessary? So if somebody said to me, Dr. Lewis, how do you feel about being the first Black governor of Connecticut? Personally, I'd be insulted. And the reason why is because I don't want to be known as the first Black governor. I want to be known as the smartest governor. I want to be known as the governor that went in there and just kicked tail. I want to be known as the governor that turned things around, made our state the most desirable state to live in America. The economy went through the roof, the smartest kids. And you understand what I'm saying? And so if you had to reduce my entire governorship to the color of my skin, which I'm very proud of, I'm not denying that, but if that's all that I had to bring to the table, then you know what, that's a real pathetic run for the governor. And so when you talk about Biden, first of all, I have issues with our president, Biden, who now is talking, Black this and Black that. And I can say this as an oracle of God, I shift from politician to preacher to businessman to educator. So right now I'm the preacher. So I'm speaking as an oracle of God. He's a hypocrite. And the reason why I'm saying he's a hypocrite, because people in the Black community who are awakened, they remember the 1994 bill, which disproportionately affected Black people in America in the prison system. We all know that Kamala Harris, who is the vice president, when she was a prosecutor in the state of California, listen to this, she convicted for non-violent offenses more Blacks and Latinos under her watch than anyone in the history of California. So with those types of records, right, that a Biden and a Kamala endorsed and enforced that disproportionately affected Black people and Black families. Fast forward, and now they're talking about, okay, well, I want to make sure that a Black person, I call it buffoonery. And this is nothing pejorative or negative about who he actually chose. I think that Ketanji Brown Jackson is an extraordinarily intelligent woman, and I think that that she probably has tremendous capabilities. But if the element of my selection is not solely based on my content, my character, and my production, what I've done and what I'm capable of doing, there's going to be injury in the process. My ability to be a Supreme Court justice should not be based on I'm Black. It wasn't based on Thurgood Marshall being Black. It was based on how tremendous of a civil rights attorney Thurgood Marshall was. And he happened to be Black. And at that time, it was needed. It was very much needed. But the onus and what the entire decision rested on was his capacity, not his Blackness. And so in many ways, without even, the selectee understanding that it's actually defamatory to us. We're bigger than that. We're better than that. I know I'm smarter than that. You know what I'm saying? I think I look even cuter than Denzel Washington. We both Black. But you know what? I want to be known for, is thinking about Denzel Washington, who I always say that I'm cuter than, but and you guys decide. But think about it. If Denzel's, and he's one of my favorite actors in the world. Just imagine if everybody reduced his acting to, whoa, he's the best black actor. He's the best. Whoa, that black guy sure can act. Wow, man. Whoa, he acts good for a black guy. Think about it. No, he's not a good black actor. He's one of the greatest actors of all time. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so he happens to be black. So all of his roles weren't about black people. All of his roles, they were different things. They were varied things. He was a cop. He was this. He was that. So that whole process is a tired old process. But guess what? Guess what? Guess what? It actually taps into an emotional side of the far left whites and far left blacks that are still living from a place of victimhood. They are hurting. They are hurting. And so Democratic politics plays on the hurts, the past pains of people that have clearly been disenfranchised. No one's denying that. But the problem, even with CRT, is that it denies progress. Right? That's the problem I have with CRT, right? Critical race theory. It denies progress. No one's saying that bad things haven't happened. Right? No one's saying that egregious things don't happen even to this day. But the problem is that to talk about the negative and to deny progress in our amazing country is very injurious to us moving forward, because it's actually covering the lie that we haven't made progress because this happened.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So we only have maybe a minute left, but she has a really quick question.
Yeah, so kind of to tie this all together, how do we combat these issues of racism, the CRT? How do we bring everyone, just back to God and to really bring it all together?
Love conquers all. Love. We have to understand, right? If I were, I would stand my ground. And I'm saying that in love. In other words, you're not going to make me a racist, and I'm not. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not playing the game. And if you want to say that I'm racist, guess what? I love you in the name of the Lord. I'm going to continue to love you. And then you'll get it together at some point and understand that this has all been a trick of a party that's trying to blindfold us into their agenda. I'm not playing the game. I love you. I'm going to continue to love you. Even though we have difference of opinion, I'm going to love you beyond all of this. And that love will bring us to one another. And ultimately, it'll bring us back to God.
Absolutely.
Amen
All
to
right.
that one.
Right. Okay.
Later.
So I wish we had more time, but we're going to have to say goodbye for now. But thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.